Good afternoon. Welcome to Lisa Albanowski's Business Corner. And I wanted to introduce today Lee Friedman of Friedman Law Associates. And welcome, Lee. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Good to see you, as always. I'd like you to describe your business a little bit, Lee, for all of us who don't know what type of law you practice.
Sure. My law firm, Friedman Law Associates, is in Hauppauge, and we focus on all different types of real estate and debt-related matters.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, like, what made you go into this business and why did you choose the profession of being an attorney?
Well, when I was younger, when I was in college, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I wanted something that would be fulfilling and that would be more than just making money. Obviously, making money is great, but there has to be some sort of greater purpose. So I thought being an attorney, with the way that my sort of brain was wired, I thought that would be a good way to go. And being an attorney allows me to have a career and help people at the same time.
So as far as your career, how did you get started?
So when I first came out of law school, I was working at a bunch of firms that focused on uh, creditor side foreclosures and debt. Um, After a few years, it got very old for me. I didn't feel like I was fulfilled. So I essentially switched sides. So I started representing homeowners, home buyers, and debtors in their own particular issues. So I could start representing, the small guy, not the big guy.
So when you say debtors, what do you mean by that for people who don't know what you're talking about?
So anybody who has any type of financial problem. So if it's credit card debt, if it's mortgage debt, anybody who has any type of issues, related to finance, I assist those people. If it's in bankruptcy or foreclosure, I'm able to assist those people.
So I've worked with you in the past, more real estate related, but through that, sometimes we have a short sale, right, or a foreclosure sale. The bankruptcy and credit card debt is something that you can help with too, as far as guide them on how to fix it, or is it really just once they get to the point where they need legal assistance?
I'm usually there for legal assistance. The majority of my practice is focused in real estate, and then we do a lot with real estate debt. So we do loan workouts, short sales, but also I found that my clients also have other issues, have credit card debts, have other financial problems, which led me to add that to my practice area. So if somebody does have credit card debt, medical bills, things like that, there are ways through bankruptcy in order to rid themselves of those.
So really what you're saying is, people who typically have problems with their mortgages and their real estate have other debt and problems as well. So it makes it easy as a one-stop shop for them to get help from you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Um, and is it you? Do you have a staff? Can you tell us, like, when somebody calls you, what do they do? Like, what can they expect?
Sure. So I have about I think I have 11 employees who have fulfilled different roles. I have people who negotiate loan modifications and work on the foreclosures. I have people who work on the short sales. I have people who assist me with the bank representation, the buyer and the seller representation on the regular straight real estate transactions. I have customer service people, so I have people in all different roles in my office, as far as intake and for people who are already clients, they always have some sort of assigned paralegal or assistant to help them through whatever we're working on.
So you have people in place. If you're not available, you're not going to see everybody. It's you're just going to be able to help manage the whole issue if someone has multiple areas of need. You have people in house that you're not like uh, sending this out to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything gets dealt with in-house.
Good,
Any
and I
type of
think that's important.
negotiating, all that stuff, everything gets handled in-house. I don't farm out anything. I go to every closing, every foreclosure conference. I try to do as much as I possibly can, but I'm just one person. So I have staff that I trust. I think everybody's been with me for at least 5 years. A lot of people have been with me for 10 plus years. So, we're
So
sort
that's
of
good to
a
know,
family
Lee.
and we work together very well.
Yep. And I know that there are many people in your staff that my clients have worked with as well, but I just want people to understand, the vastness of your firm. We see you and you're representing the firm, but there are so many aspects that you just can't touch everyone.
Absolutely. And I have a staff because it is impossible. I as essentially a solo practitioner, it's hard to really deal with everything, but to have a support staff, have paralegals, legal assistants, client services people, it allows me to service as a greater number of people and not putting anybody to the side. We're responsive, on any particular deal. We're always in constant contact. If we're working on something where we have to negotiate with the lender every 7 to 10 business days, every client gets a call. So if it was just me, that stuff would be impossible.
Good, right. And that's very important for people to know. So what's something most people don't know about your business? Is there something that you can share with us?
Um, I don't know if it's something that don't people don't know, but I think from a general perspective, a lot of people think of lawyers as this scary, you go into this office where there's a lot of books and wood and things like that. And lawyers are not necessarily like that. That's how attorneys used to be. They used to be held in some sort of high regard or held themselves in some sort of regard. The fact is, I'm just a regular guy. The people who work in my office are just regular people, and we're here to help our clients reach whatever goal they have. So if it's buying a house, selling a house, helping them with a debt issue, we don't have to have that sort of pomp and circumstance. A lot of people, will say to me, you're a lawyer? Not because of my intellect or anything, just because I'm a very relaxed person. And I feel like having a relaxed atmosphere puts people at ease and actually makes the whole process of whatever it might be go a lot smoother.
And that's one thing that I really love about you, Lee. It's you're a genuine human being, and you're easy to talk to, and your firm's like that, and you don't put on any airs. And for the general public, you're absolutely right. The old school lawyer, right? You go into the attorney's office, was very intimidating, and you just break through those barriers and allow people to just be themselves and relax and really get to the bottom of the issue so you can really help them.
Yeah, and I don't think that really adds to anything. If I wore a suit every day, because when I started my career, I was very junior, I was an associate, and they would have me wear a suit sitting in essentially my hole for hours on end. I would not see another human being. I just realized that there was no reason for it other than to fulfill a certain role. So when I got my own firm, I said, I'm not going to be like that. It doesn't make me more productive. I think it makes me less productive. And I think all my clients are better off for it because we don't have to worry about all the baloney and all like I said, the formality. We just have to I roll my sleeves up and I get down to what needs to be done.
So how did you get started?
As far as just for my own thing, my own firm,
Yes.
like I said before, I sort of got disenchanted with representing, big banks, lenders, foreclosing on people. So it got really old for me, and I try to take a different trajectory. And I decided I have this base knowledge and this understanding of how these processes work, real estate, debt, things like that. And I decided that I wanted to open up my own firm where I'd be able to help the individual as opposed to helping the big bank.
So very personalized.
Absolutely.
Yep. And that's what I think is so comfortable about you too. And that's your style. Um, can you give me an idea, or maybe a story about one of your most memorable customer or client experiences, that would be nice for people to know about your firm or yourself?
Well, I just think that no one particular story, but I think that I have a lot of, let's say, Well, two things. Number one, I have a lot of repeat customers. So someone who bought a house 6 years ago when I was their attorney, they'll call me again when they're selling that house. Or somebody who had financial difficulties a few years ago, we've been able to get their finances straight, and a few years later, they're buying a house, they come back to me. I get a lot of referrals from previous clients, friends, family members. And also another thing that I think that I do is I'll turn down, if I have a client who comes in the door and is looking for something specific. Let's say they own their house, they're delinquent and they want to get some sort of modification. I'll look at their finances and I'll tell them, I'll say, I'm sorry, based upon your numbers, etc., I can't help you. And they really appreciate that, because a lot of times people are also worried about people taking advantage of them. I'm not that way. I'd rather tell somebody the truth. I'd rather send them on their way and try to find some alternative, and not take their money as a lawyer, because again, lawyers get a bad reputation for being unscrupulous and taking advantage of people sometimes. I'm just not like that. And I think, I probably get way more referrals from turn downs than I even, in some respects, than I do from even completed files, because they understand and they appreciate the fact that I'm honest with them. And a lot of people are not honest with them.
That's wonderful, Lee. So somebody knows that when they come to you, they're really going to get an honest evaluation, and you're not just going to take their money on a retainer, and then 6 months later you realize, or they can't be helped. And that's
Right.
very refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it. To a lot of people. I'd be a much richer person if I was dishonest. That's just the way that I'm wired. That's how some people are. Some people are only in it for the buck. Some people think that if you walk into my firm, into my office, you're going to be a client no matter what, and I'll do whatever it can to make you a client. If I can't do what you want me to do, I'd rather, be honest with you and send you on your way than take your money and having, an unreasonable, you having an unreasonable expectation, me not being able to get you what you want, and then having some divisiveness. It's just not worth the aggravation, nor do I think it's appropriate.
Well, very refreshing. And, the next thing that comes to mind is, what's going on in the housing market right now. Um, and there's so much change, right? So can you maybe share something going on that your clients or clients in this case, should know about?
Sure. I'd say, as far as the housing market is, I know there's a lot of concern out there. One thing that people have to realize, especially, we live on Long Island, what they're talking about for the market as a whole is not necessarily going to happen here, because we have a finite amount of space. There really is no new construction, because there's just no more places to build. So there's always going to be buyers. There's always going to be sellers, regardless of where the rate is. I mean, the historic rate is over 8. We're not at 8. So even at 8, 9, 10, I talked to my parents, people who bought in, the late 70s and the early 80s, where they were getting prime rates at 12, 13%. They were still buying houses. I think that there will still be people buying houses. So I think with all the talk with interest rates, that shouldn't dissuade people from trying to buy a house, people trying to sell a house. The market's still there. So instead of maybe having, as a seller, having 15 offers over ask, we're still seeing on the majority of the transactions around ask. So it's not like the market's is completely getting crushed. It's just a matter of tempering expectations, but still hanging in there.
And that has a lot to do with what I do as my living, being realistic with someone who wants to sell their property. They're not going to get the 20 offers like we had over the last couple of years, but they're still going to get a really fair value price in the market today. There are many buyers out there, as long as they're realistic that they don't want more money than their neighbor got last year.
Right. And not to mention, and when you represent buyers as well, I mean, maybe, due to an increase in interest rate, they can't afford that 750 house, but they still could afford the $700,000 house. So it's not like they're out of the market. It's just expectations need to change. Sellers might need to drop their prices a little. buyers, their buying potential and their ability might go down a little, but they're still sellers and they're still buyers.
Right. And that 750 house might be a $700,000 house in this market.
Exactly.
And so it's really a matter of adjusting to what's happening. But like you said, I've been doing this 20 years. There's ups and there's downs. People always move. People always need to have shelter and housing and want to have more for their families. And it's really about, you know, being fair and equitable in the transaction.
And what people also don't factor into the equation is that rents are at all-time highs, which means that you're, like you said, you need to have shelter, you need to have a home, need to have some place to live. Whether it be a rental, rents are so high that it still might make sense to purchase, even though you think that because rates went from 4 to 6 or whatever it might be, you might be out of the market. You still, in many circumstances, probably most circumstances, you're better off buying something than you are renting at an incredibly high rate.
Because the rates are just crazy in the rental market. I see
Correct.
it every day, and they are escalating, which is interesting. Every day that I see a new listing come up for a rental, I'm amazed at what their ask is. So
Yeah,
we definitely should encourage people to buy, because buying a house is not for an investment unless you're an investor, and that's a whole different ball game.
sure. I mean, if
I
it's going to be your forever house, these little things don't really matter.
Right.
It's you don't margin doesn't matter. It's very cliche. And when I talk to people who are purchasing, trying to figure out, sometimes the appraisals don't come in exactly what the purchase price is. And with those clients, and sometimes with clients that I'm dealing with, when we're talking about somebody who, let's say, is in foreclosure and owes more than their house is worth, it's cliche, but is it a house or is it a home? Because if you're home, then a lot of these things don't really matter. That if it's just an investment, if it's just a piece of property, it might matter. So if this is the school district you want to raise your kids in, this is where you want to live, this is where you want to be. If you owe a little bit more than the house is worth, or if you're paying a little bit more than you really want to, it still has value. There's intrinsic value in a lot of this that people don't factor in when you're just looking at plain numbers.
Right. And if it's just numbers, then you're a whole different buyer, and it doesn't mean that to you. Like, those are
Exactly.
different people than we work with. Right.
Correct.
So what would a client of yours say that they love most about you or your company?
I definitely like I would say our relaxed approach. I mean, I think that I'm a pretty disarming kind of person. When I have real estate closings, I keep it pretty light because, again, it's very stressful. This is going to be the biggest purchase that somebody's making. A lot of times people are selling, their childhood home or their parents' home or something like that. So in order to bring it down to the tension levels, I think what people realize is that we're all regular people and we're working towards a specific goal. And I think sort of our competence, clearly we believe that we're incredibly competent at what we do, but I think above and beyond that is the approach that we take, a very relaxed approach, so people are more comfortable.
And it is very comfortable just to talk to you. You're an easy to talk to professional, which is awesome in our world of craziness today. One of the things that I just want to reiterate is that your firm, Lee Friedman, is the principal owner, right, of the firm, Lee Friedman,
Correct.
and your firm handles real estate, bankruptcy, foreclosure, right, and
Correct.
financial issues, and that would be the focus of your practice.
Correct. Correct.
Good. So, how do people reach you? What's your phone number? Where are you? Would
Sure.
you
All
please
right.
tell
So
us?
our office is in Hauppauge. We're at 300 Wheeler Road, Suite 101 in Hauppauge. Our phone number is 631-648-9428. And the email is clientservices@friedmanlawpc.com. And one of the reasons why I give out client services as opposed to just mine is because we have client services people, paralegals, who are all on that email. I'm on that email too, above and beyond, my regular email, because there could be somebody who essentially could assist you at almost any moment, if you reach out to that email address.
So it's a generic email to Friedman Law Associates that many people will be getting. So it depends on who needs to take action.
Correct.
Awesome. So Lee Friedman of Friedman Law Associates, it was a wonderful pleasure to have you today. And we could probably drill down to 10 different topics about all the specific areas that you deal with. And maybe we'll do some follow-up work in
Sure.
the time to come. Thank you
Sounds
so
great to
much.
me. Thanks,
Thank you.
Lisa.
Again, Lisa Albanowski, associate broker, Signature Premier Properties. I'm here to help with any of your real estate needs and partner with our great resources such as Lee Friedman and Friedman Associates. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day, Lee.
Thanks.